Sunsaje tam jejeng oere tanje kholjam chapda karing somba mi be pankon tinchen lama tam be shepje tere tma mi pala goherab de de ke be san sa she jap sun ji o ju sun ja la paran je de so ninje jin bo zu de ni me de sun ne mo lam jin bo ngap ja ta be ka ta pa jin de se me Temba tu je jinang ge san cha wo min shu jin je po dong ne de sum san je gong je ngo ni ran sim chu gong sum dong ze ba za wa la me xiao la so wa en de yong de san je gong da nyam na ya ga den san je gong ya la ban go za wa la me xiao la so an de en ro lo tam be chu la je wa en ze gan da so je den gen je de na de xi lo mar je ba gan so da den de den be chu jen chen be je sim ban de ba tam jen de xie xie Namaya Tambala Ekita Lota Nipjinke Atvam Dada Maya Kinam Rua Gunja Dake Chamba Tamche Keda Dake Chuten Do Tatrin Ngachu Della Chutun Tamadaji. Tangama Niola, Magisola Masona, Mona, Chutun Tamaji Chavi.
This evening is our final discourse for a while, our final gathering for a while, before I take a trip to New York.
Tanga Niola Loya, this honey Jida Juhaka. Kita gohat sibat juga, tak? Jadi New York tang, New Jersey tang, ini Connecticut tang, Washington tang, Oregon, di Solo pakai dawat ni, sum, tak kacang gula hakom untuk tentu jilang korsaris.
So starting on the 1st of September, I'll be leaving on a trip to go quite a few places: Oregon, Boston, New York, Canada.
Canada, Mada.
Oh, Canada. Oh, Connecticut. I'm sorry, Connecticut. And so a number of places, and so I'm not sure how long it will take.
Ini jane, tak tereng aja. Kami cutun dela, musik cutun dela, deh nani ta macam cik nyamni kandas sih kore. Lakpat tereng ke nyamni. 니야 추지가 냠니 간디시고 있어야 돼. 다 유자가 주셔야 돼. 의지가 주셔야 돼.
So the main subject I'll be speaking upon is how we can go about practicing a spiritual path in our daily life in the here and now.
아니 다 대추 의지의 맛이야. 뭐나 아니 혼로가 주. 내 남주 대시에 And
as always, the preliminary stage is very important. So I want to guide us through our preliminary to this. So in order for the main practice, or whatever activity that one is going to do, to turn out well, particularly for spiritual activity, the preliminary motivation is what determines that.
That's sound like window there, window kitchen and Samba Zangia, the sound that you pay. Ben a dog sound that you Tabiana, poor dog sound in the Janet, dog de la, and in Jeve, Dolimato Gia. Rana yi, Ming sound Tabaina. 대 민데라 제가 거랑 저 거랑 민도 전에 제가 거랑 라야 민 대인데 전에 삼바 개와 난다 그 심배 지 공동 삼바 장부 심바지 소환이 바이나 무지대야 랑진게 개와 남바 다바치라 차가 요리지 대인데 전에 공동대 삼바 멤버방도 손바이나 아니 무지 추가 저 야보지 요바이나양 고 공동 멤버방도 소환이 됐잖아요 휴대 야보지 차가 요 말이지
So it's just like the intention. Okay, excuse me. Everything depends upon our original intention, and so it's just like the seed of a plant we put in the ground. The original intention. If that intention, just like a seed, if it's a poisonous seed, then the only thing that will come from that plant is poisonous plants. Whereas if the seed that's planted is that of a medicinal plant, then it will all, result in medicines that can be used. So if in that original intention, the motivation that we bring to an action, if there's some poison mixed in with it, if there's some kind of deluded state of mind or pride or some self-seeking, then it will pollute the entire activity, which may have been very pure and purely designed practice of Dharma. But if there's that impure motivation that's brought to it, then it changes it all into something more like poison, and vice versa. If the motivation is very beneficial, then everything that follows from that will end up being healing and beneficial.
공동대 간다지 삼목당 그랬으나 공동대 딱 내 주시에 그 요리 지난주 주인 그 요리 주니시에야 돼 가서 나랑 주치 렘동 갈라서면 때모 대바자 많이 봐 주시야 돼 되는데 간로 요리시나 주시도 전에 벽에 주시가 요리 셈 유주 안세지라 당신지라 셈 유주 당신지라 무슨
So I'm speaking about Dharma, and you're listening to it. And this kind of activity in Tibetan Buddhism is not meant for show. It's meant for the actual process of Dharma, or in Tibetan it's called Chö. So it means to transform. So the purpose of this is to bring about inner transformation, to develop our inner awareness and develop our mind.
근데 전에 셈 유주 땅 마고 아직 차대요나 휴셔 고동에 요 말와. 근데 전에 나랑서 딱 제차자 탐바 셈 유주 땅 마텀네. 아니 다 봐도 아니 랑지반 지바. 아니 예야 와도와. 아니 대게 치 호알은 참바리. 셈 유주 땅 마고와데 가르리시나 산지다 사주선반 코나바 셈 유주 땅 차와리 안데시 셈 유주 땅이시나 아니 랑르 땅랑 야와도 인지반지 아데
So if there was no need for us to change anything, then that would be another matter. But the fact of the matter is that because of certain attitudes that we have, which tend to be self-centered and not concerned about the welfare of others, then we have wandered endlessly conditioned by suffering. And so there's a problem with not changing anything. Those who don't need to change anything, these are such beings as Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. They're the ones who have undergone the transformation, who have already undergone that kind of transformation, so they have nothing left to that needs to be remedied. And what is that? They reversed the attitude. Rather than being self-centered, rather than being primarily focused on themselves, they've turned their attention to the welfare of all others. And that is the major transformation they've accomplished.
대고 인된 되래서 다때 빼측 누가 침보지 놓고 내와 지니빠 대고 인된 되래서 놓고 내와 지니빠 유 가르더니 송아리시나 잉그 내와 삼로 땅네 대 나랑라 캡상데 나랑 그래요 놓고 동해 지니빠 유 갈라 송아리시나 랑 기반지바 랑시네 란된 되래서 써야 돼 그랑 기반지바 되는 송아리.
Well, there's these very potent words that Shantideva says, which is that all happiness that exists in the world arises from altruism, arises from being concerned about the welfare of others. This is what is really the source of happiness. This is where happiness comes from. It's the other attitude of being self-centered, not caring about others, that leads to problems and suffering.
엔디 전에 망도시에다 지식을 망도시에다 지식을 시베란든 시바당 특별 인지 된세바 내니지는 체바르되시네 다 망도시에 고면도 왔지 산지의 인도세네 상지에 산치선 받쳐와 나랑 주 란도세네 다 다버던 코알은 참바리 다른 델레 독사지 나랑 주 득바사나 델레 독사 인성숨나 코알은 참도 가오래. And
Shantideva goes on to say, there's no need to say a lot about this. Just look at the difference between Buddhas who are liberated in bliss, spontaneously benefiting others, and samsaric beings who focused on their own welfare, just continually to put themselves through torment and wander aimlessly. So it's quite obvious from the difference that this is the benefit of reversing that attitude of the self-centeredness that's inconsiderate of others into one that is focused mainly on the welfare of others, serving others by oneself.
나군 타다냠바 심지 탐지기 치데 닝기 사바 니바드니 장 아니 니마르 레지인데 인둥기 치데 라는 또기 사바 남자든 르네 슈니 슈셰바이나 아니 고롱 사바 장부심비 쥐지.
So let's put this into practice at this point right now in setting our motivation for listening, that it not be something that is primarily self-centered, that's focused primarily on ourselves, but think of all living beings throughout the world, throughout space, and think that I'm listening to this for the benefit of others, and from henceforth, day to day, I'm going to apply it as well as I can with that same motivation.
So
thinking about this, let's recite the four measurables, which is the next sheet that you have in English, and then we'll meditate on that for a little while. So let's recite it 3 times, and then meditate. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from highest bliss, free of suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from prejudice and delusion. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from highest bliss, free of suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from prejudice and delusion. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from highest bliss, free of suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from prejudice and delusion.
다 파지 띠나는 지난주 파지 씨보지 하고 심진담제 대화도 대회 여당 선인들잖아요. 제는 봐 진보요. 심진담제 아들 내가 그 칼라사야요 봐. 잡을 중요해요 봐. 대장은 아주 대화도 저게 매와 있는잖아요. 대화다 대회 여다 님바 주지 저기. 아 대화 타도 그 여다 가래리시는 거랑서 또 대화 타도 그 여다 대화와. 대화다 대회 여다 님바 주지.
So these words are pretty self-explanatory, but just thinking about it a bit, may all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. These are potent words to think about not only beings having happiness, but the causes of happiness. Because, for instance, without food or shelter, and clothing and so on, it's difficult for beings to be happy. So to have those kinds of causes, we're aspiring to that, we're praying for that. And as far as ultimate happiness, and ultimately the cause of happiness is virtue, actions that have that potential to give rise to happiness.
앞에는 동화를 주당 세대잖아요. 다 지당 그거니 다당 아주 동해 진료를 나차. 심의 동화를 심리 그 동화를 문도 줘야. 다다 동화를 쓴건 아니. 여러 동화 땅. 하나 이 동해지 동화. 다 뒤거든 맞아 참에 너그요 말이. 다뒤 동해든 너그 매와 이나 다티 동해의 여다 가만히 소화래. 자지들 다 덴바이지나니 송바나이. 금종된베 열었대네. 아니 동한된반 개별은 좀 거요라. 대인도잖아요. 금종된바도 수수바리시나 금종된바 종히 속아요 말은. 금종된바세야도 유명도 안 그주게 하죠. 이 동해의 여대. 다 빵타바데. 동한 너금이나 동하의 여대 빵 거예요.
Then suffering, where does what makes all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering? There are many levels of suffering. We speak of three types of suffering: of pain and change, and pervasive suffering. The first two, suffering of pain, of physical and mental pain, is very easy to recognize, and also the suffering of change, and we feel, loss of something that is very cherished by us. And so what brings about these kinds of sufferings? Well, as explained in the Four Noble Truths, the second Noble Truth, true causes, or the true origins of suffering, it's explained that it's not anyone else, it's not some other force that causes suffering, but it's the delusions, the negative states of mind, ignorance, attachment, aversion, and the actions that we engage in based on those kinds of afflictions of the mind or deluded states of mind that bring about our suffering, that are the causes of suffering. So it's only by eliminating those causes that suffering could be eliminated.
동화를 미쁘 대와 담발하네 벌주지시대. 동화를 미빠서야 되게 다른 가랑 초라 치 공도시바 나지. 아니 동화를 숨당. 라바들 류셈이라 동화 문절이 바짬 내가는 용바 짱게 아주 인지 대화시나다 대왕 엄마한테 토크요 말이지. 다 동화를 미쁘 대와 담바당 세대잖아. 동화를 미시야 티 가사가 다다 가발로 무슨 것이나 땅 가랑 초 템도 주니 그 나네 스파 치 낸드는 지기 나는데 지 고삼바 스파다 림바 디실린 스파도 치네 스파 준치네 아니 드라좀 공방 토야다 아니 송나 지 산지 그 공방 토야라서 근데 지 가도 송나야 디값스다 대화 담바하셔야 돼.
So if we were to be able to eliminate manifest suffering, that physical and mental suffering, then that in itself is not an eternal happiness. It's not a sustainable happiness. If we're going to speak about being totally free of suffering, as the next line speaks of, the highest bliss, free of suffering, if we are to cut the very root of suffering, got it?
나 동해 짜와니 짜야 되나? 스파 세바.
we need to then bring craving and grasping to an end. So this is the only way to reach that highest bliss that is free of suffering, to bring an end to craving. So in the 12 interdependent links, which Buddha explains how we get caught in the condition of suffering, of cyclic suffering, of samsara. Some of the links, the links in that chain, craving and grasping. These are the links that need to be broken.
다 타마데라 니렌 차당이다 잡아 따념 침볼라 내버렸지. 다 송아이나 나지 냠지 나를 인지라서 봐. 사주스미 주반다지. 용거일 때 가시 마성와 있나양 아니 니렌 차당미 봐. 내가 빈주 니렌 차당세는 고알은 참바리 랑그 파다 마라서 봐다. 랑그 쪽보다 로모라서 봐라. 쳐봐세. 아니 랑라 내가 뭐가와서지라 아니 라시네 대랑 큰도 좀네 아니 대라 당와세. 근데지게 차당세는 고알은 참바 뒤주는 것이네. 딱 동나양 나진 냠바 나진 지와 나를 인지 근데지 마성와 이나양 니렌 차당미 봐. 땅형지라. 남고 타다 냠도 심지 탐지 대완대 받지 봐. 랑다대. 너하면도 받지 봐. 랑다대. 고꾸는 총바리 심지 대나랑에 누지나 르그만도 피다 맡았나에 삼바 참아라 아니 땅형고 삼고 땅거리지.
And in the final line we speak about having equanimity, free from attachment and aversion, the delusions and bias of prejudice. So even if we have not or can't at the moment reach that state of equanimity which cherishes all living beings equally, more than themselves, like the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, at least we need to work at this equanimity where we don't hold hatred towards some that we feel are just very distant and antagonistic to ourselves, and craving attachment to others that we feel, or on our side, to equalize this kind of attitude, bring it to the point of, first of all, equalizing. Equalizing is the first step before exchanging. But equalizing, and how do we do that? It's by reflecting that we are really no different. We all have the same wishes, the same aspirations for happiness, not wanting to experience suffering, and letting our mind contemplate that, absorb ourselves in that awareness of the welfare of all, so that we develop this equal feeling for others, where we cherish their well-being and happiness just as much as our own. Okay, so let's meditate on whatever of these points resonate with you for a little while.
That Dege, that Dege, I think we could chew my son and Hundoku. That Kung Ju at the Pemas Kachimo in the China, Kung Ju said the China, Sambata, India. Any that on him, the Dege got the Chimmy got the Jugodi, Dorjechang.
So that's a brief explanation of our preliminary practice of setting the motivation with such attitudes as love and compassion and equanimity. So it's very important, the motivation that we set in the beginning.
Any language could shoot a lot, the Ranga to shoot a lot, Yama Chigla, Matsi Chigla, Nanchusia, the Candisin and Yanisi Godisia. That thing got on the shade, the Chinese thing, a man or the Chishuins.
So I want to speak now about how we can practice Dharma in the course of our day.
I get on the goni, going to Shiba Nanjimari. A true said the Chane, Machu Pepe Chu said the Tichilla, Ben the Bachimochi, Chusiatella, Jusa the Jusita. Chune, don't Jula so but an enjoy Chusiat. That the cups of Papa Nachu, Gomjan Chusiat, Kari, Ting and Rogoricina, that Mamboshi and the machine can you marry. So they, so dancing new bo, so new monk new bo. Swayina, any chin de la, any ching at you that Sanjak compound that Dutch on compounds share yuri. Totally Langang at all a yuri, totally Nubang at all a yuri. Matty Lapala yuri. Swayina, chin de lutola. Mazoina, Jiva Jima. But Jiva Jima killing Kina. This one.
That's mantra.
Choose the other.
Okay, so what we call now Dharma, the Tibetan word chu, it has many different meanings, the Sanskrit word, Dharma. In general, there's a general meaning of it, which means just a phenomenon, something that exists, something that holds its own essence or its own nature. So there's like 10 different meanings that are applied to this word Dharma. But in this case, where it's referring to the Buddha's teachings, then it refers to that which will counter our own ignorance, which will work against our own ignorance and our own selfishness, our own self-centeredness. So that which counters the delusions, the ignorance, the aversion, the hatred, the greed, jealousy, and so on, in our mind. This is what is meant by Dharma in this case.
That chin de little some of Dana. Tanga to killing it, Kelangna, Karisical Kelang Sinada, that Sanjik Compansia, the Drubchen Compansiata. Ligi Tuli Langang, actually, Yuris, Sanga Chung Katakondusia. Chin de la, Latanga to Choa de Latin, and Jali Chuko Shesuni.
And so, in this method of Dharma that we have here, it's incredible that there is a complete path to enlightenment, full enlightenment in this very lifetime, if we can put it into practice. The attainment of the rainbow body, there's different signs of the attainment of full enlightenment. But the implementation of this is up to us. It's in our hands. And according to the view of Buddhism in general, which accepts reincarnation, I don't know whether we all accept it or not, but within that worldview of reincarnation, then there's also the idea that even if we can't accomplish full enlightenment in this life, through the efforts and the progress that we make in this lifetime, that it can then result in enlightenment within 2, 3, or several more lifetimes.
어떤 내용도 있잖아요. 다 똑같이 시에 취해야 돼. 소소 약보지 차야. 소소 약보지 차서야 돼. 나랑 취를 띠네. 약보 차서도 양 강바침보요 바 빼샤망보요. 가시 그 취를 딱 넣어요. 취제세나 나 총약보지 용나. 취제세나 지금 아체 rinpoche 되다. 취.
Okay, so now when we practice, so when we practice Dharma, the real intent of it is then to improve ourselves, to become good people, to become very honorable, wise, a very honorable and wise person. Sometimes people seem to get involved in spiritual activities for other reasons, like some kind of material gain or things to make everything go well and you'd be lucky and successful. But it's really not for those kinds of purposes, which are more of a mistake. It's for that purpose of improving ourselves, developing ourselves from within. So the human intelligence is actually, has a capacity that far exceeds other creatures, what we're actually capable of. So, just to illustrate some of those capacities of human beings, yes, we can develop ways to fly and go pass through the earth and so on through machines, but we also can develop guns with one finger, pulling a trigger, we can massacre hundreds and thousands of people. I mean, this is the kind of capacity that is there in the human brain. In that case, if it's used for destructive purposes.
So
all these amazing inventions that we see in the world, somebody's invented those, right? It came out of a human being's intelligence.
So
if we could just turn that intelligence to the spiritual side and just think of the amazing results that can be attained. So if we, in the course of our lifetime, if we really put our concentrated effort completely into that, there's no limit to what we can accomplish. Sometimes I explain Dharma to people, but they say, "Oh, I can't do that. That's beyond me. I don't have the ability." Okay, so in general, people think about how they're going to support themselves in their life, what kind of work they're going to do, and we'll put effort into that, perhaps round the clock, 24 hours a day, making their living, without even 1% of that being directed towards any kinds of spirituality or awareness. So if So if we put all of our energy and focus, bodies, physically, verbally, mentally, into the Dharma, then the results, we will see the results.
ngaranso meri meke chusena pingri samba meri meke degwasene nugri samba ngaranso landor ko nenjiake nipa yoro asi nipa yoro a chusena pingri samba da degwasene nugri samba ti ngachola samno ti tumong mayin ba yoro a.
So we have this kind of intelligence which can discern, the difference between actions that are destructive and harmful to others and actions that are beneficial, helpful. We can see that there are positive results to well-intended actions and that there are destructive and very negative results to harmful actions, ill-intended actions. So this is a special kind of wisdom or intelligence that we can develop as human beings.
pena dendro dendake ani jiwa june ani sanji ko ba thosu sa siya do asi dendro.
And all living beings can attain the state of enlightenment, even animals. Animals have the complete potential for enlightenment.
jumsin ka yin koranju juela dewa shipun himbo to yoyo kalaro wa.
And that's because they have what's called Buddha nature, the Tathagata Garbha within them. They have the potential for full enlightenment.
jum ta de ngai dong do du ji xie ge yin si dong do du ji xie ge yin si
So a short story I want to tell you about this.
pena ja ni lo bu yin yin si ya ji ta da ja pa ba yin chong chuan ni si ya de ge da ni ta lo bu yin yin si lo bu yin ni ani korang gan khang ba rum chung chung de ji na ne yo ani ndra de ni korang ko loi tho lan de se ma ndra chon ne khan do to de.
In ancient India, there was a master named Vasubandhu, one of the great masters among the 6 ornaments and 2 supreme ones of India. He's one of the 6 ornaments. And he had a small room of his own in India and would recite this scripture. It's called the Vinaya scripture, Vinaya Sutra, which is this sutra about all of the vows of the monks, the ethical discipline, sutra on ethical discipline. So he would recite that in his room.
Ani korange kangbati togatene mara sa promni ani dede yesi.
And there were 2 doves that lived and sat on the top of his roof listening to him as he did this recitation.
Ani korange kandunde chama tön chali 잡de ani 사드니 ani persongde 사드니 persongde ani 사드 탁 se ani 다 che korang che zo ani 셔송도 와 탁탁탁시네 사드니 지와 탁 사지 요리 탁시네 korangi da shir da ganji ani.
Okay, so when Vasubandhu finished his recitations of this very extensive scripture, then these 2 doves flew off, and they were attacked by a hawk that ate them.
아니 코란이 체조 살렸던 냠더니 힘바 코란이게 공롱게 인인되네 추셔삼바가 삼노요 말에 인이게양 사대니라 추셔삼바게 되니까 고나 삼니게 삼노요 말에 인의양 코란이를 추 암초를 투델 피용되게 아니 지와 지마들라 로봉 코란게 랑랭 케바가 소마니 ngumba ranglang kepa lobu lodu timba pasi ranglang kepa lobu namdor de siat loma ni de jiwa lang do choi.
And so these 2 doves then took rebirth as human beings and became great masters. They became students of Vasubandhu himself, even though Vasubandhu hadn't had the intention to teach these doves, and they were just listening, just letting it come in. Just because of the great blessings, the great power of having received that, they became two masters who even surpassed, 2 disciples who even surpassed their master, Vasubandhu. One of them became Master Lodru Tempa, who surpassed Vasubandhu in terms of the paramita teachings, the teachings of the perfections. And Shambhadi Namdo De was the other disciple who surpassed even his teacher in the study of the Abhidharma, which is the compendium of phenomenology in Buddhism. So this is the kind of capacity that is there in the Dharma for realization, by all living creatures. So what is the most important thing for us to do then in our daily life for spiritual practice? It's remaining conscientious, remaining mindful of our thoughts, our speech, our physical actions. So creating a very vast reservoir of mindfulness, of conscientiousness within ourselves. And so without wandering. So not wandering, not without distraction. So it said that the not wandering is the path of all the Buddhas. So in that verse which we looked at before, we saw, don't wander, establish an ocean of mindfulness. We don't have this sheet today. And the next line, on the path of distraction lie bandits, demons of the delusions. So just thinking about these two lines. So, what is the problem, with being distracted? Are we going to be attacked by bandits, that look like that are carrying weapons, bow and arrows and guns? No, it doesn't mean that. No. Rather, these bandits, these demonic bandits that lurk on the path of distraction, they are within us. They're constantly with us. They don't come from the outside. They come from within. So these inner bandits of the delusions have enslaved us for life after life. And because of that, we remain wandering without fulfilling our aspirations, experiencing one suffering after another. So the idea would be to single out these inner enemies as being, my real enemy, and making a commitment, making a determination that I will not let myself be overpowered by these enemies. Anything that leads me in a negative direction, that I'm not going to allow myself to be fall under that influence from now on.
나로 출한 그 드라트 세트나 디니 모텔라 은혜다 출한 자가 치슈드 디니 모토베 바오 야슈드 디니 모 차레.
So Shantideva says the real hero is not the one who can destroy the outer enemy, but that one who can destroy the inner enemy. On that day that we overcome that inner enemy completely, then we will attain insurpassable victory, full enlightenment.
다 딘딘디 자네 되지 잡아요. 마요 되지 이메일 되지 잡아요. 다 되대 가래리시는 무슨나 차당들이 차당 심부센데 돼.
So what are the real demons that we're talking about here, or the Sanskrit word maras? It's the attachment, the aversion, those delusions in the mind.
차당 심부센데 돼 있어야 돼. 다 차당 써야 되나 망보지 파시야나 망보지 시야요. 다 차당 그 유대 가왈 도르시나 아니 차당 그 유대 아니 가지 또 딘지 말해봐. 다 대자와니 그런 찌타바이나 아니 차당들 아직 가도요.
So there's many varieties of delusions. Basic, a simple categorization into attachment and aversion. But what is the root of these? These trace back to a self-grasping ignorance, our confusion or our ignorance, in which we are deluded into clinging to a truly existent or independent or a separate ego, self, concretizing things as us and them in this way, and all the delusions, get their source, have their source in this kind of grasping ignorance.
And so
the final thing that Rinpoche said then is that if we can cut that root, if we can undercut the root, the source of all the delusions, then we'll be able to completely eliminate them.
And that timba tini kapsa, ta andu si tangna de kapsa, sosola chadang loka ze chikendo. Katang kong de sheba na kadambe gevi shini nambe. New mumba namto re yung de deve ya. Geve namto re yung de deve kalpo ya de siata, katang kumashika yuwa. Den da chi se ne. Sosu yue la nimongo loka ze chihendo nima chikla. Yinpin samba zangbo. Oni tawa sanchuk sem. Dei ko ki yina pinse ko loka se jendo. Ta takbar ta ma ta na chuzu jiksa kama kashi jila samno tang tan ya bo yori.
So we can relax sometimes and just watch our mind and observe it for these kinds of factors. Even if we can't do it throughout our whole day, at least for as time if we did it for an hour or for a minute even, it's very good to just observe. And like I mentioned, with the practice of the Kadampa masters, where if they noticed that they had some disturbing state of mind, like anger or envy or jealousy or something, then they'd take a black stone and they start a pile in front of them, and then they go back to watching the mind. And anytime there was an especially altruistic state of mind or love or compassion or something like that, then they have the white stones that they would move. And so observing just how many black stones accumulate, how many white stones accumulate, and eventually not letting the mind wander to that dark side, to the harmful side, the side of the black stones. This, of course, just being symbolic language. It's the words that tend to be used equivalent to virtue and non-virtue in Tibetan. But so this is the idea, and to gradually watch and then not allow our mind to wander in any direction that's harmful, that has some kind of bad intention, and so on. Lotus.
Nga lo nishi tsachi ki kapsa, ene dukana nga lo sum, dawa sum, nima sum na lo nishi tsachi kapsa de insi. Nga lo jin dordu ji shege. Nga rang lo jin dordu ji shege insi.
So I want to tell a little bit of my own story.
Ngalo ni shi tsa chi ka se Drubkhang na na ani losum dawasum yamasum ngachu te kaju pa ke korang tate chumsin ne yanda da ha chi ini zongde losum dawasum yamasum da Drubkhang na madena da ha de le mengde de korang togo yu mal da ha da sa ju ma da le mi shi da ha chi de ma cha ga yu mal de de tane ngalo ni shi tsa chi ka se de.
So when I was 21, I did a retreat for 3 years, 3 months, and 3 days. And in our Kagyu tradition, in our Kagyu tradition, it's actually a requirement at some point if a lama is going to carry the name of the monastery or the name of a lama, they need to do this long retreat. So I did it when I was 21.
아니 단 신의 자원인데 만 인초고 말이지. 그러나 대사 때는 안데시는 검자네 안데시 인고요는 저랑 거때시 파야 지름잖아. 딱 감던데 두기 충충들에 야래 로섬 나와섬 여마섬 저랑 뛰는 대책 마시는 데 거리시다. 딱 로섬의 자원인데 그런 인산 인초고 말이지다.
Now during this 3-year retreat, 3-month, 3-day retreat, in our tradition, you don't lie down. You have to remain sitting in your meditation cushion the entire 3 years and 3 months. If you have to sleep a little bit, you let your head go back, but your legs stay in the crossed position of meditation, and that's the only sleep you get during that period of time.
다 로 담비 값을 로 충충인데 자네. 나와 니스지라. 다 부모가 돼서 강아지 정성시.
So I was pretty young at that time, starting into it. After about 2 months, my knees were really hurting. That was in the first year, those first few months. There was really a lot of pain in the knees. And then during the second year, there was an incredible amount of training that we underwent. We had to put a lot of effort forth for that during that second year.
다 산지가 람세야 돼. 오늘 람 던데지를 띠네. 다 상지고 유사리 삼니. 람데랑 나랑 로서 람지네. 냠닝가 람 로당지요라. 데라 오늘 이치데 투모 많이 봐 이치 진보지 찌네. 로 타마가 값어. 단 남주
and then so during the third year then we did a lot of practice with the 6 yogas of Naropa. These practices of completion stage, of manifesting subtle mind. And as I came to awareness of the nature of the mind during that third year, then I developed a very extraordinary conviction in the path to Buddhahood.
다 준주 마세나 레벤 준주미 봐. 어총 맞아 누르 마세 깝지 마세나 레벤 돈주미 봐데 다 니신다지 제성시. 인지기서 그동안 no pain no gain. 말해.
No pain no gain.
No pain no gain.
So
So
it was the blissful experience of that third year. I realized it wouldn't have happened without the work and the perseverance that I put forth during the second year.
당가도 마 두그리시 다 나와 숨면서 요 말에 지랑서 마 슬로를 되냐라 나와 숨면서 요 말에 지랑서 나와 숨 차니 슬로를 되는 거요레시 아니 라마케가 잡을라면 되는 까나데 배승받죠 당근에 짜와니네 되는 좀마 당가 다랑나 다른 양자 로스는 대긴 삼바지 다 다 마트는 가르치고 당간이 앉아 놓으면 되게 아무 시켰던데 되게 인상 받던지 이거 이내양 마도나 초기요 말 가인스는
So at that point, my Lama, my guru, told me now you just only have 3 more months, and then you're going to be leaving retreat. And at that time, then I was very distraught. I just hated the idea of leaving the retreat. I wanted to remain another 3 years in that retreat at that moment.
이내양 때가 졸라 남과요 말이지. 가인시나 단 로지마 유니크 요 탐지 참아듯이 득디요라. 나그 름 다단 강바도 며칠 코로나 사이 잡는 때죠 주차요. 그만해.
However, I didn't have that choice. And the retreat rooms were already taken for the next 3 years, so
딱값 대등 어찌 다 마잉 써야 돼 책대 누가나래 배죠 단 거요지.
So these words about not wandering, establish an ocean of mindfulness. I had these words. I posted them inside my retreat hut.
간다시 배죠 단 거요리시나 담 어르신 로서 랑가 된다 통대살아 쇼버든지 자티그밀라 마잉스 아니 김바 동사 된다는 야 매건 통사가 사찰라 양 마잉스야지 아니 탑장당 아니 고 로사 된다 랑가라 아니 이게 되는 마잉스 이게 가사깔라 매건 통대사 때 가래 핑게 요리시나 마잉스가 측지 피니 이게 된 통니까서 몇개 람상 나랑을 쳤다는 진짜 좋은색 진짜 야란색 될 핑게 도시.
And in fact, out of this verse, it's just the 2 words, ma ying. Don't wander, don't be distracted. It was just these words that I'd put up wherever, my eyes would go. If it was on the walls inside the retreat room, on the way to the bathroom, on the way to the kitchen, everywhere there'd be signs posted, "Don't wander." And so, what was the benefit of this? Every time, see that it would be this support of mindfulness. It'd be an agent of mindfulness to remind me to be aware. What's happening inside? What thoughts are arising? What's the quality of the awareness that's arising right now?
아니 가 두관은 마델이 뭐나 가 아향지요지 아향데 가가 개긴데 가가 아향이 빼마스 까침버지요지.
So I had one of my teachers was my uncle who was quite strict with me.
다 두관은 마델이 뭐나.
So before I went into retreat,
두관은 마든 차드 아니 고랑 갈라거든. 다 주라 멋지사지 차야지. 주라는 막 앙땅보지 차야지. 다 추세야 돼. 은행강 드는가 은행 이친다지 추를 제서. 추세야 돼. 되는데 뭐주주다지. 샘주주다지. 공도시바 나지. 아주 샘주주다지 인도 자네. 다 로스나 된듯이네. 냠니시 세나 다 된듯이 득난 된듯이 레는데 띵띵 뭐말라 만다와지. 뭐 아버지 차대서 나랑가 하고 뭐도 나가 아양데 다 출하는 내 책지 나오고서 말이 출하 뭐 찌라지 차야지. 근데서 그러지. 다 추세야 돼. 땅 든지지 좋아이나.
And so this uncle, who before I went into retreat had a lot to scold me about, when I came out of retreat, he saw that I was quite transformed. And he was very praising of me, said, "You really turned into a first-class person. I so much believe in this Dharma, that can transform people." Because, as I was saying, that this, it really is meant for that purpose. And he could see the results. He was the one that could see it because he had seen me when I went in, he saw me when I came out, and saw the deep transformation that had taken place.
이내 드랭에 지난주에 시대 값은 아 약보인 내지 약보 제자스는 되고 싸워지는 시금이 좀 아 약보인 쌍금이지.
But I'm not saying, I'm so great and wonderful. I'm not trying to tell you that. I really don't think that.
다 취해야 돼. 다 같이 시에나양. 소수 샘들 제흔히 뭐. 다당가랑도 샘데 로언두스네. 롱님버 왕데르스네 곰네. 근데 다때른베 인데르스네 야 주주당네. 로 장부 소라. 로 야고지 소라. 당근에 그 샘데 심신하다 취해야 돼. 다 샘 그런 게 묘모 막에서 그 님벌은 놔야도 깨진 거예요.
So Rinpoche uses this image of his hand, of our mind being oppressed by negativity. And the idea of the Dharma being for it to be released from that oppression and be able to come to a completely straightforward, honorable, sincere, honest state.
망보지게 록 대랑 임바텔 공성도 록 가와라 공나양 독자라 공나양 또 망보지 공성도 대 약보지 인삼발에 마도 대 독자지 쌍거요 말이지 대처 유주다야나 갈레티스 요레시다 대처테스 땅거 주고 요지.
And often when people have been under the influence of delusions for so long that they don't see the problem with it. They think it's fine. And in that case, it's really hard to bring about transformation.
대인도 자네 다 딤바스야 돼. 딱바르시라. 쇼가 야랑니 값을 소시 소트 동바트. 내데시 사도 아니 처용 낭나 뒤에서 내가 말래는 거나 룰루지 돼.
So this mindfulness throughout the day, morning, evening, we get up in the morning, after we wash our face and brush our teeth, then to sit and reflect a bit.
당나 마데네. 나는 주보데 매임바스나 든로다 임바 딱 가서 담조니 가와서야 돼. 하자 짜지 뭐라. 든르지 니 가와케 매주보데라 임바라 마다가 남주 요바. 된 남주 때 배주 lokpa ma tang ne shu ge so yin ping ge so me zhe dong dan de ba ji ya bo ji ji ge yin sa ba shu ma yin na nang bu chu ge ja ma le de ji xiao gua da dam jia ya ne ani so shu le hong nan ro ge yu na me la ge ja xi ge na ngo zong de de ji song ba yin na ni ma de ni mo ge le ga cha ma de ju lam cha ma de ji ge so la ga ran yin ge ju to ge yu de.
And the first thing to reflect on is the fact that we have this human life, which is incredibly precious and very difficult to come by. And to appreciate that it's a very rare gift to have this human life with the kinds of capacity that the human body and human intelligence affords. And to set a motivation that I'm going to use it as in the best possible way, this opportunity. Whether it's a formally Buddhist practice or not, whatever kind of spiritual practice we're involved in, to just set that kind of motivation at the beginning of our day that I'm going to act in as kind, wise as way as I can, and that will have the power to then transform what happens during the day. The different acts, the different occurrences and activities into virtue. It will transform them into something that can bear positive fruit.
Jula number ye got Roa inanda, Sawa inanda, Ketashipa inanda, Kadu inayang, Timber Zetting, Matawasi Swaina.
And so this is the ideal, to keep this kind of mindfulness, this conscientiousness throughout all of the activities of our day, whether we're having a cup of tea, whether we're sitting down, walking, traveling. In whatever we do, to keep this mindfulness introspection.
Nimong seate topate namdo mageva topate sudan solaina yore pena dancing topate peda nintu da ranjala sobala dancing topa yoro 대하나 이 까담부 개위신이 남발라양 똑방 임바든데 지야요 이는 똑방 임바데 독자지 말이 똑방 임바데 유주당의 람상 님부 딘저세네 세 개지 뭐 빼나 까담부 개위신이 지게 당에 로주시게 있어 자꾸마자
And so, now, the point in this is that if something negative arises in our mind, not to condemn ourselves or to just feel discouraged, but to, with this mindfulness, then bring about the immediate transformation. That's the point of the transformation. It's not bad for just a thought to arise in the mind that's maybe some kind of negative thought, but to be aware of it and to instantly apply whatever antidote would be appropriate or effective in that case. And and everybody has delusions. Everybody has delusions because everyone has this kind of instinctive self-grasping ignorance, which is the root of the delusions. Even Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas have some vestiges of this self-grasping ignorance, beings that are quite highly developed in the Buddhist path. Great masters can have negative thoughts that occur in their mind. For instance, there's a story of the Kadampa master who had been asked by a family to come and recite some prayers for the blessing of the family. And he was a very great master, but he had a slight lapse, and he was doing his recitation. He thought, I don't have any tea at home. I think I need some tea. And there was this bag of tea, so he stuck his hand into the tea. But then he realized it. His mindfulness clicked in, and he yelled, "Thief!" He called the. He wanted to really apply the remedy strongly. This is a very intense practitioner, right? So he called the owner, the sponsor, in to come and see. Look what I found here. There's this thief that's trying to take your tea. You have to cut this hand off right here. He said, you have to, and the sponsor said, no, I really don't want to do that. Please don't. So he didn't seem to actually. But it was that force of an antidote that he was ready to apply with his mindfulness immediately. So we can judge what kind of antidote we are ready to use ourselves.
다 강다장 마잉해야 돼. 측대 빼마시 벽에 나주나니 마잉해야 되라. 마스되잖니 가다리. 잉해야 돼. 먹게버 소라 마잉. 무딘 거더니 쇼거더니 게버 소라 저 줄. 먹게버 소라 마잉. 마스야 돼 가다리. 잉해야 돼. 먹게버 소라 마잉. 게버 소라 잉해야지. 다들 책 누가 침보래. 대대자리 지난소야 남주 시험나 딱 제세네. 소수 생그 가래 딩도 소수 랑로고도 맞아봤어야 돼. 내 출한 그 동반 동거 요리 출한 주빈 남바도 입 라서버 내 출한도 자만 동거 요리 마도 출한 생의 가래 딩도 내 하고요 말아. 원심이 놈시. 출한 그 생 가래 딩고 출한 시유다.
단단 전부 가르쳤는데.
마잉시야데 마시야데 가다리. 잉시야데 먹게베 소로 마잉시. 게베 소로 잉시야.
Okay, so now there's these two words, Tibetan ma, ying. The ma is a negative, not, don't. And ying means wander. Okay, so explicitly what it's saying is don't let your mind wander to the negative side, to anything that is under the influence of ignorance, greed, anger, aversion, all these deluded, disturbing, afflicted states of mind. But what's implied is bring it back into the virtuous side. Transform it from something that was headed in a negative direction into a positive direction. So I think this is a really important point to keep in mind for spiritual practice. It's at the core of it.
아니 들어가 슈팅 파티 때는 참자네 들은 될라 가장 예요라 대 농섭자가도 와 농섭자가요 아니 농섭자도 될 핑계요래 같은 거를 보지 그송 다들 인치 돈에 맞지 아니 먼저 나가 샵된 이제 너가 있어요 어때 지금 아니 뭐 몰라서는 맞주네 야본 도시.
So this is coming about to the end of our session this evening. And so now let's turn to the prayer that swiftly fulfills all wishes. To say this prayer, we'll recite it in English, thinking especially of the people on the East Coast right now that have this hurricane heading for them, because this is the kind of prayer that can have benefit. And then we want to go on to recite prayer that's on the yellow sheet, which is for the long life of Rinpoche. And then we'll go on with the dedication prayers. Emaho, in the heart of a blossoming lotus, upon the waters of a lake, you are the spontaneously accomplished wisdom, the embodiment of the 5 Buddha families. O great self-existing Pema Yabyum, surrounded by the clouds of Dakinis, to you we pray. Grant your blessing so that our wishes be quickly fulfilled. As a result of our negative actions, whenever we suffer from illness, malevolent spirits and obstacles, warfare and violence, famine and starvation, then remember your promise that simply to think of you will immediately consume all such suffering. We implore you from the depths of our hearts, O Lord of Orgyen. Grant your blessing so that our wishes be quickly fulfilled. To practice devotion, discipline, and generosity, to liberate the mind through hearing the Dharma, and to have dignity, self-control, and knowledge. Make these 7 noble human qualities penetrate the minds of all sentient beings, and so bring peace and happiness to the world. Grant your blessing so that our wishes be quickly fulfilled. When oppressed by illness, suffering, and unwanted circumstances, falling prey to harm and obstruction from the negativity and demonic forces, threatened by fire, water, and journeys of great danger, when this life is spent and death arrives, at all these times, we have nowhere to turn except to you. Care for us with your great compassion, O great Orgyen Guru. Grant your blessing so that our wishes be quickly fulfilled. Om Swasti. May the blessings of infinite seas of our places of refuge, the force of the two truths' infallible interdependence, and especially the hosts of deities of immortal well-being, now rain down the magnificent splendor of their wisdom and power of longevity. The Lord of the dance of all victors' enlightened activity is Karmapa. Your unquenchable thirst for the inner essence of his traditions, doctrines, of discourses, tantras, great seal, great perfection, and pith instructions, has brought the qualities of signs on the spiritual path, your experience and realization, to their full flowering. May your life be firm. May the wisdom mysteries of your body, speech, and mind be as perfectly firm as a Vajra's own immutable elements. May your gatherings of disciples who study and practice the sacred teachings of Scripture and realization by listening, contemplation, and meditation cover the earth. May your activity reach its ultimate consummation.
Oh yeah, that day. And this is any that thing as you can't do the true nearly, and on the true share, and the true near sheba. So now you have what you saw it. I can't do money colon on that tree, and colon on that tree shade, shema got it. I come to sheba 90. Sa from Nike, and in Indian, Chuni, Sario Mate, Chun, Nibateke, and the Jiva Jima. Military debate, digital in the Bachi, you will. Tang, Tang, ne tele ke chu tang 아주 냠든 좀네 공론 규득 타네 이제 춘이 셰셰바 게사다 시 마고아리 게사 쌈제 맞아봐 싸바리 아니 디 게사데 다 공도시바 나이바리 남건 타다 냠베 심지 탐제게 치데 대와다 디 동하다 잘 다 심지 탐지 대와다 대외 주트 디버주지 심지 탐지 동하다 동하지 주타 타와 지지시 디 책데 된절라 싸움 땅 아니 심지 탐지는 뭐게 인상 바시네 아니 망호다.
So we've now attended to the Dharma, you listening, me explaining for some time. And as I mentioned before, there's such great power and blessing in the words of the Dharma themselves, even without a special motivation, like in the story of the two doves and Vasubandhu. So with us approaching it here with a reverent, positive, attitude, there's no need to mention that it carries an incredible power. And so the root of this positive energy now we dedicate, we send in a prayer, we steer it towards the purpose, which is the happiness of all living beings and their freedom from suffering. Think about the four measurable attitudes that we mentioned before of love and compassion, and equanimity and joy. And send forth this positive energy from our attending to the Dharma to all living beings, that they be conjoined with happiness and causes of happiness, they be freed from suffering and causes of suffering. So we'll recite the dedication prayers first in Tibetan and then in English.
Barde alame shabe dembada khanya yongla deji jongwa ye da ye mala adujane yede sanje salam babayo. May the glorious Guru's feet remain firmly on the lotus. May beings throughout space find happiness and bliss. Through clearing our veils and expanding positive qualities, may we all reach the state of a Buddha. I fully dedicate all of this virtue the same way that Hiro Manjushri and Samantabhadra understood, so as to train by emulating them.
Oh yeah. Anything there? Any that ngaso dawa ni saji yini pache ngaso tukri tada ding khangba de ngaso peju tang da dawa mangbo chin ro yore nge ya jar dre yin thaba ne tuji chi ani jiran ji palang da wi ro jap di ji ni ma mangbo chi len din no mai ba mangbo chi le phin tho song yore de ni zani chirang chola ya da su nam sa gare yin thaba ne tuji chi shwa chap chi de ani 단 남주 자 다와 차지랑 아주 대치신데 아미타바트는 냠내시게 요리 대 당아 메리카스 지랑서 내갑지는 참야 다 동나양 아니 하디당 다 켄데 지랑서 파선 드와시네 아니 이메게 토니 드와시네 다 나와를 relative마를 참아 로마 참아 천좀네 동나야 나와를 relative마를 천좀네 니나는 냠내지 시트네 야본도 없이.
So we will be taking this break now for 2 months, after which I'll be reunifying with you. And in the meantime, I want to again express my thanks to the Wave Street Studios for this very generous use of the facilities and the videoing and the streaming to people around the world. Again, from the depths of my heart, thank you so much. And now about our Monday night Amitabha practices, we'll take a break from that the Monday, the weekly practice while I'm away. But I think it would be good that if at least people could get together once a month and do the practice, apart from whatever other meeting is held. That would be wonderful. And so you can keep in contact with each other with email and to coordinate that. So thank you. So I'm going to say this prayer now. May we always be together, inseparable from the Master. And may the Guru and all of our lives be stable and long, like the earth, as stable as the earth. And may we unceasingly engage in the practice of studying, contemplating, and meditating on the Dharma. And may happiness and spirituality, the Dharma, flourish evermore.
Good night, everybody.